In this lesson, we are going to discuss about loss functions used in regression and classification machine learning models. If you think this lesson is useful, subscribe to our channel and press bell sign to receive notifications on our new videos. Loss function is the quantity that we try to minimize when finding the optimum solution to a machine learning problem. For example, let's consider error E equals to 1 upon n summation I starting from 1 to n yi minus yi hat squared, where yi is the observed value and yi hat is the predicted value. You can see that this value will become 0 when all predicted values are equal to observed values. In practical scenarios, it is hard to achieve 0 for a loss function. What we try to do is to making this quantity as small as possible when finding our model. Depending on whether we are going to solve a classification problem or a regression problem, there are several options to be selected as a loss function. Here we have listed some of commonly used loss functions in machine learning. There are more out there, but we will discuss the listed loss functions here. First, let's discuss loss functions for regression. Mean absolute error is the average difference between observed and predicted values across all data points. Mean absolute error is also called L1 loss function. Mean square error is defined as the average square difference between predicted and observed values across all data points. Because we are taking the square of the difference, this function results in larger value than mean absolute error. Mean squared error is also called L2 loss. When we take the square root of the mean square error, it is called root mean square error or RMSE. In regression problems, sometimes error might grow as the value of observed value yi increases. For example, if you want the same error for predicting 5 as 5.5 and 50 as 55, mean absolute percentage error can be selected as the loss function. Human loss is a combination of mean square error and mean absolute error. We can define a threshold d and use mean square error for yi minus yi hat is less than or equal to d and otherwise a modified version of mean absolute error. This helps to reduce the effect of outliers on error value, as more distant outliers can fluctuate the squared error significantly. Let's look at some loss functions we can use in classification models. Cross-entropy or log loss can be used either in binary or multi-class classification algorithms. For the binary classification case, it is given as the average of minus yi into log yi hat minus 1 minus yi into log 1 minus yi hat. You can see when the actual label is 1 and the algorithm predicts a correct value, that is a value closer to 1, the error term becomes 0. If the algorithm makes a wrong prediction, for example, if the label is 1 and prediction is closer to 0, the error term becomes a larger value because log of yi hat is large. When we use cross entropy in a multi-class problem, the expression becomes average of y observed multiplied by log of y predicted summed across all classes. It can be shown that the binary cross entropy error function is a special case of this function. The Kullback-Leibler Divergence is another entropy-based loss function that takes the entropy difference between observed and predicted values as a measure of loss. This function can be used for either binary or multi-class classification. To understand the cross-entropy and Kullback-Leibler divergence, you need the knowledge of how information entropy works, which is covered in a different lesson. The purpose of this lesson is just to introduce various loss functions. Hinge loss is a loss function mostly used in support vector machines. It can be used only for binary classification, but can be extended to multiclass in a one versus all manner. Note that the label needs to be defined as +1 and -1 for two classes instead of 1 and 0 to use this function. For each point, error is 0 when the observed value and predicted values are equal. Otherwise, it gets some positive value. To summarize the lesson, we have discussed 8 loss functions used in machine learning algorithms: mean absolute error, mean squared error, mean absolute percentage error, and Hilbert loss for regression problems, and cross entropy, Kullback-Leibler divergence, and Hinge loss for classification problems. Separate lessons elaborate each function and their behavior. To receive notifications on our videos, subscribe to our channel below.